Okay, so Kathleen, you were saying you have something you'd like to share, and I think we would have time for that this morning. The content is a little light. I'm not gonna dive too deep for too long into it. So we should have time for you to demo your app, Kathleen. Also, Jonathan kept saying earlier this week that you all could look ahead to see how you can further optimize your project that you had started on Monday, right?
You mean like the challenges for the week?
Yeah.
Yeah, the challenges were left open-ended. So once you completed the lab, the challenge was to make it better.
Hmm.
And better being subjective.
Yes. Okay. I'm wondering because I'm just wondering if anybody did get a chance to go through today's refinement portion. Okay.
I have not got that far yet.
Did not know, sorry.
Oh no, oh you don't you weren't. I was just curious if anyone did. Like you didn't you weren't supposed to, but you also weren't like I guess not supposed to because he was sort of encouraging you all. That, and I'm also wondering if anybody thought about optimizing in any other ways, like maybe expanding on the GitHub Actions or automating the deployment of this.
I'm honestly still pretty weak on that. I barely can do what we are asked in class to do, so optimizing it or expanding on it, like that's just not gonna happen for me.
Okay.
We spent a little time on the second day this week, I think optimizing, playing around with some of the parameters in, I forgot what it was, but basically bringing down the time it takes to process the data. Got it down to like less than a second or something from 8 seconds. So that was kind of a cool optimization.
Nice.
But that's using the vector database though, not necessarily like having anything to do with Git.
Okay. And so on Tuesday, Eric introduced that then, right? Was that using ChromaDB? Okay, cool.
E- Every day I've been doing it. I've been trying to, I optimize, I add different features. I add my own stretch goals, focus on what I'm working on, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
So I think it's hard conceptually for people. Like, I got a lot of years in business requirements, right? And writing up stuff and doing stuff that way. So
Hmm.
for me, I'm like, okay, I'm working on something outside of here. What are their business requirements, right? And how can what we are doing, what AKA stretch goals can I add to those labs? So that's what my understanding of the challenge was, right?
Hmm.
Was to expand upon each lab for the day and add your own stretch goals. That doesn't, they can't replicate what's going to be the next lab. So you have to look ahead technically to do the challenge, right?
Hmm.
Because if you came up some stretch goals and that was the lab for, if you start on Monday, that's the lab for Tuesday, vice versa, right? Well, not vice versa, but as on and so on, right? So yeah, I've been focusing. That's my whole approach this whole week has been, hey, I'm gonna add stretch goals, look ahead to make sure that what I want to add is not the natural thing and actually fit what I'm working on outside of here, right? What's my use case? What are those requirements? And how do I build those stretch goals while still making sure that I have forward compatibility, right? When
Hmm.
I for the rest of the week. That's how I've been approaching it.
Okay, pretty cool. Do you, it sounds then like you probably have something that'd be worth sharing as well, if you haven't shared it already.
I did a demo on Monday
Okay.
where I worked on I expanded some features that wasn't in the lab.
Hmm.
And that's what I just been doing. I wasn't able to come Tuesday, but yeah, I just been trying to do it that way. Just been trying to actually incrementally just build on it.
Okay. Well, would you want to share what you've done since then?
In the day or now?
Let's do it in a bit. Let's do it now, actually. Let's go through those now,
Uh,
then we'll go through today's stuff. Or
okay.
let me think. Unless anybody has any preference otherwise, let's do it that way, yeah.
I did my demo in class on Monday. Was that Nick? That was Monday, right? Yeah. I haven't did that much more. I'm just writing. I have requirements written, but I did do it live in front of people on Monday.
Okay, so well, it's your call if you want to or not.
Okay. Mm, maybe I just want to add more. I was gonna push out another challenge, right? But I'm still working on it. So let me focus on that. I'll just I don't mind. I'm not yeah. 'Cause I don't want to show people the same thing. I want people to get value from it.
Right
I'll
on.
just basically be recapping what I done Monday.
Hmm.
So I was gonna make some push out my next round of changes, finish that up, and I'll be more than open if we have time.
Okay,
Does that work? Is that okay?
that works. Um,
Okay.
so I'll go ahead and share then, and we'll jump in.
Did you want to do mine at like the end of class or something?
Let's see. Well, do you have a preference? Do you want to do it now, or do you want to do it at the end of class?
I mean, I could do it now.
Sure, let's do it now.
Okay, let me make sure. Can you guys still hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I switched to headphones just in case my kids decide this is the moment to melt down. Okay. 1 second. So, basically I built so an app using Swift UI is the front end, and then I have a Python is the fast API backend, and we're integrating everything that we were learning to do RAG to incorporate a an LLM. The goal is specifically to have a an app that parents can use to look for uh, bespoke, like relevant park information for like a good playground, ideally sourced from both the API from the park authority and then also the moms and dads that use the app. So the RAG that I'm using is the API specific. So each park has information provided by, I started with Fairfax County, Virginia, because I had to start somewhere. So I built it using all of their information. They have information like amenities for all the different parks. Are they park friendly? Do they have playgrounds, etc. And then from that, I built the LLM that using Claude specifically to generate information. And then I have SQLite. And ChromaDB is the embedding database, and then SQLite for storing user data, reviews, conversation history, etc. So I can share my screen.
Nice. Sounds pretty solid.
And then one thing that I started to do, so I used this is called Xcode, and it's a application simulator for our iPhone system because my thought is I'm going to launch this in the app store once I figure stuff out. I kind of turned it into an agent. I wanted to do something with like multi-agent. So I'm also bringing in weather data and then letting the interface basically bring in weather data, take a look at that, see if it's like hot or cold or whatever, and do the decision making of like, okay, I know that this park has, pavilions, this park has indoor space. So it's going to recommend you something relevant to the weather and what you're looking for. So here's the interface. The app opens up. You can see, let's see if you go to the home. This is my app. I created an icon for it. And this is the app. So the first interface, it talks about County Parks Guide. So guide, Hmm, go and give it. And then it's thinking. And I did in my prompt, I have it provide at least 2 locations because I wanted to give options. So it's pulling current cold weather. It says to focus on indoor friendly or sheltered options suitable for toddlers. And so it provides 2 different places, Mason District Park. So it's got the playground and the restrooms available, which is always important. So it's pulling out sites, insight like that. Holland Hall Park. So cold weather tip because it's cold. I think this is great for like moms and dads that are looking for that. Indoor nature centers are ideal. Yeah, let's see. What. Let's see if it'll come back with because I have one place that I'm trying to have it recommend. Hopefully, let's see. Yeah, there we go. So previous conversation, so it's storing my my query from above and the park data that it's referencing to indoor places. So there's two nature centers that have pretty good, they have indoor locations. And so these are exciting. It's adding little things like exciting for young children. So I like that it's being super helpful. And information I recommend it provides a recommendation, and then at the bottom it gives the different parks that you can then click into. I will say I'm noticing a bug that it's not actually, so it's recommending Hidden Oaks Nature Center, and then it's not actually providing the pin to that park. And one thing that I was running into is that the park, well, it is. So Hidden Oaks Nature Center is actually in Annandale Park. And so Hidden Oaks Nature Center is a feature. It's listed as a feature in the database. So that's one thing I'm going to have to fix is that like, okay, it's recommending this, but then how is the user going to know that it needs to click on Annandale? Like I need to fix that tag. But so like if they click on Annandale, this is the information. And so it's got a map interface, although a lot of them I'm still working on the so it has the address right here, but all of them are populating on one spot in Fairfax. So I did geocoding for them, but it looks on this interface that's not actually working. On the main map it is, but so it's got the information about special features. And so one thing that like it'd be great for this to have is like, yeah, features, Hidden Oaks Nature Center right there. Like I would probably want it to expand on that in here. But the ideal for this app is that I want moms and dads to do the reviews because I don't want to just like Google reviews are okay, they're Google reviews. So they're not, sometimes they're helpful, sometimes they're not. And I'm always pouring through and looking for like the pictures and like what's the playground look like, right? So in my review that I'm going to have like a beta group do. So we'll have an overall rating and would they recommend or not. And then all of this information would be stored in the database for the LLM to check against. And that would be like it would prioritize real ratings and the park data. So shade, seating, restrooms, playground, crowdedness. These are things that like I as a mom am always thinking about when I go to a park, and Google reviews don't really give me any insight on. Ages for the playground, and then I have a series of tags that I would want people to say like, okay, hard to find parking, atmosphere, good for parties, containment is a big thing. Is it fully fenced or partially fenced? Because that's going to be like a really big factor for my younger kiddos. It has blind spots, etc. So I will say that I probably have a few too many tags in here. But I think I can further refine. Thanks, Mom. And it's a little bit hard because you have to click and drag since it's an iPhone simulator. It's like so another thing I'm going to do is, I'm calling it Park Scout. I want the parks to have badges. So if 3 or more parents confirm one feature, like if it's really safe or if it's got good shade, they're going to get like for shade, they get the badge would be shown for the park that it has a solar shield badge, or if it's got really great bathrooms, it's a golden throne. I was thinking like kind of lean into the park aspect to make it fun. And then also just like the context of when did they visit. If they say it's really sunny and they said in the afternoon, like it could be like, okay, there's great shade specifically in the morning or something would be good context. And so all this information will be saved in the database for additional RAG information to pull from. And then for if somebody just wants to explore, they can just take a look and click at the whatever park that they want. And so parks near you, I have little pins for drive distance. It's just a pin if it's close. And then I think once it gets further away, I changed it to be like a little car. Yeah, if it's drivable, and then if it's like really far, it's drivable. And then for a more because it's an app and I want people to engage with it, if I specifically it's a hot day and I want them to be able to do just like I want to go to splash pad or something, I'm like somewhere in Fairfax County that has water available. Here's all the different ones, and they're like, okay, today we're gonna go to Great Falls. So I thought that might be a fun thing. So one thing that's currently not working is so this sign-in process. So I did a sign-in because I want it to be able to store session information like long term. So I don't want just in session, I want also long-term memory. And this wasn't working. I just rebuilt it. So we're gonna live test if it works or not. It was giving me an error because the table in the back end hadn't been created yet to store this information. Oh wait, I didn't sign up yet. Sign up. Okay. Registration failed, yeah. So I'm gonna have to troubleshoot that further. Because I wanted to be able to store sessions so I could troubleshoot them, make sure and do all I have a testing suite of like, is it actually pulling information that it's recommending? Is it accurate or not? I wanted to be able to run those kind of tests. And to do that, you have to store the data, but without a session like stored for the by user, I can't do that currently. So that's my goal. I need to fix this so I can do some more analysis on making sure it's making accurate predictions. So that's my app. And so
Well, that's a lot, but it's really impressive.
hold on.
I'm wondering, can you walk us through some of the code?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to okay, hopefully that worked. Yeah, so I started with Park Find Schema. So I have a bunch of different files that are going into this, right? So like I have schemas that talk about all the different apps or like attributes for the different parks. And of course, my friend helped me create all of this information. So these are specific RAG query schemas. So like different things that sample queries, 3-year-old. Yeah, so these are different sample queries. User schema is going to be the different user preference creation. For authorization, I don't think that this is not working yet. So we need to figure that out because it's not allowing me to register the user. I added the Park Scouts badges. So I wanted to have tier information based on your review count. So for this just sets up the different trails or the different badges. So because these are things that the parks specifically are going to have badged or have achieved. Let's see. Yeah, lots of different conversation schemas and instructions for the app to reference when it's doing. For the server, this is what I have to it's building out the endpoints, and this is where I'm ingesting. So I was using Chroma, Llama embeddings. I was using Chat or Anthropic's Claude as the engine. So here it's pulling in all of those schemas. And then here's the database path to my vector database, the Chroma parks. And then the data path. So this is where it's pulling in the source data and the Fairfax Park, which is a JSON that I pulled from. So I think that's in, I think that's in is that in my docs? Source data. Yeah, so this is the JSON information that I pulled from the Park API. So it's in, it has information in the city, description, the different amenities. So that's where I built kind of these water activity special features. So I'm going to have to find another, if I want to expand to a different county, I'm going to have to find something that's matching this or something that I can adjust to. And then here's my main with memory. I think this is the one that I'm using now because I wanted to have RAG with conversation memory. So again, this is where it's my system prompt. So this is the configuration, output directory is an output because I wanted to save each response when I'm using it in here. System prompt. So you're a friendly park guide, helping family find parks. So at least 2 parks, comparing amenities. Each park, do the key amenities, what makes a good fit, explain, offer the alternative. And then this is for like the follow-up. And yeah, so I have the conversation memory. And so this was definitely, I didn't do by myself. So, but this is the development of how to handle the history. And here's the LangChain messages. I had to add in a retriever to return from the ChromaDB.
Yes, I am aware.
Okay, and here's the model that I'm using for the chain with memory. This brings in the history for the previous conversation, and then the context. Okay. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so the current question, yeah, I think this is all just building up into the process for the development of the conversation to include all the context and the history. And then this was, I wanted to make sure that there was a log to output the information, and that's going into my output file. So there's my session information there. So I wanted to be able to check, okay, with these settings, I think I set it to include all the configuration and the prompt, system prompt, and then the interactions. So like this is something that I wrote in, what's a park near George Mason that's dog friendly? And this is its response and then the time. And I wanted to make sure, so another one, adding those questions, giving the response. I wanted to be able to optimize that stuff. Yeah, so this is obviously it's pretty short, so I wasn't able to do much of that, but I wanted to be able to have a log that I can record specifically the configuration as I'm iterating on that, and then the logs. But so
Okay.
a lot of extra files in here, obviously, because it makes a lot of helper files. But so this is how I ingest it. This is the file that ingested my JSONs. But yeah, do you have any other questions?
Yeah, how does this connect to that mock front end? And also, I think some other folks might have questions. I think I saw Cam's hand up.
Oh, I just had a question about Kathleen, how she got the data source from the parks, but it sounds like you had access to an API.
Well, so that one in class on Thursday, I explained that one when it was searching, like Claude was searching for a source, and it wasn't able, all the sources that it said it found, like it kept getting like errors coming back. And so then I just searched for the documentation for park information, and it was I found the API documentation and provided that to Claude. I was like, hey, look at this. And then all of a sudden it worked.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I had a second question for
Yeah.
Julius. So, Julius, I know Platoon, what I've seen so far, definitely helps out with the recruiting process to get a job. If someone like Kathleen or other team members want to like deploy an app and do something, is there like resources or people that we can reach out to be like, hey, I have this app, I send it to a couple users, there's some interest. What would you recommend as far as the next steps? Are there any legal compliance issues that we haven't even thought about? Like, is there anything like that in Code Platoon?
I could think of. No.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, because that's my next step would be to get like I was looking at different systems to make a website that I could provide to do a group of beta users to like identify bugs, but basically just like you get early access to populate this full of reviews, basically, because right now I don't want to just source like Google reviews because I don't think that they're usually that helpful. Um, and I might be able, so I don't want to like gum up my reviewed base with that information. Um, but yeah, so that's the next step there. But there are some legal things that I need to do, like the user agreement and all of that stuff, if I'm gonna look at putting it online. And I will say Claude was pretty comprehensive in walking through like, okay, if your goal is to launch this in the iPhone store, these are the things that you have to do, like user authentication, the terms and agreement and all that stuff. So, but of course, have your lawyer look at it, right? Or be prepared to like have it not be sufficient. But like we'll see. We'll see how it works.
I think in that case, like, even if it isn't, like you'll know because they'll get rejected.
Yeah. Yeah.
But actually, now that I think about it though, to answer your question, Cam, I do think the what is it called? There is an alumni group that is ran by DJ Man, and that could be, yeah, that could be maybe like the best resource for what you're looking for, Cam. He might be, if he's not planning on visiting during the cohort to talk about the alumni group at all, I'll try to get him to. And Kathleen, can you tell me again, like how do you have this mock tool hooked up to this?
You're muted, Kathleen.
Thank you. Yeah, so one of the files that I had it create, it's to be used specifically in the simulator. And let's see, what is the file type? Yeah, it's PBX proj. And so like it created that. And then I had to download Xcode specifically, and that comes with a simulator in it. And so when you do, let's see, where did I think it yeah, I'm not sure. Oh, there. Max Parks Finder iOS. So it's under my iOS here. Yeah, so this is the information that just like Claude created, because there's no way I was going to be able to do that, but it built all of the front end, like all the back information. And once you go into you bring your project in, you download Xcode, and then bring in the file, add the file that basically just point it at this workspace. You have the simulator, like you drop in your app icon. It's pretty simple, pretty click and start. You just stop, like you hit start and it builds the park from the files. I had to periodically, there'll be like extra features that I have to add in. So this is like the folder structure. Like when I wanted to add the API stuff for the weather, it's like Claude had to create a file, and then I had to pull it in and add a new file to the services. Like you have to add files, and then go and like add your other AP, whatever is the new version of the file that you want. And so once you populate with like I wanted to add different information in the park detail views, so Claude had to create a view file, and then I had to bring it in. When I did the badges, it added some models in to add a badge model. So like you can see, like this is the structure of that, where it's like coding, um, earned badges, pending badges, park names, etc. Like all the different details that would go into adding badges to the different parks and everything. And then I had to hit like play, which it just rebuilds a new version of the app, and launches it on your phone. And you can change which phone like you want. If you don't want to be an IO in 17, like you can try it on an iPad. You can try it on a iPad mini. So like in any of these devices, or you can build any device, that way it'll work in any. So um or no, sorry, this is to build a device. These are your different simulators. So I thought that was pretty cool. So I just did the most up to date one with a pro. But yeah. So I
Nice.
thought that's cool because you can do um once you pick up a park, you can like simulate that it's gonna, okay, click directions, and it sends it to the map. And it pulls like my location that I've set. And it tells you how to get there. So
On good stuff. It's pretty rad. I've never used simulator myself. I think if for those of you that like React and front-end tools, try out Expo. It's a framework for building in React Native, and that's one easy way to convert from a web app to a mobile app. And it similarly allows for simulating what it might look like on different devices, or more so running it on different devices. But it doesn't come with a cool UI like this does.
thanks for letting me share.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for sharing. Okay, let me share now, and we'll get to some of the optimizations in today's lesson. Let's see here. And then we'll try to talk a bit about how we might optimize further using GitHub Actions. All right, so a lot of these lessons are very short, which is why I said we aren't gonna dive too deep. Monolithic versus modular design. I think I don't know how much we've talked about this throughout the cohort, but basically on one end of the spectrum, you got your monolith, which is when you have an extremely large code base and it can be very difficult to navigate. It can be very difficult to test, run, rebuild. The heavier it gets with code, you might have like really long code. It might be harder to work with agents if you want to use that to help you code because there's only so much context that an agent can hold. So those are the downsides to a monolith. And on the entirely other end of the spectrum is modular design. And that's when you break everything out into, like the phrase suggests, modules. So smaller chunks. And the challenge here is really how you design that layout or that hierarchy. If you have just a bunch of different components thrown into one folder, then that sort of circles you back to the same problem of having somewhat of a monolith. But if you have everything organized in a sensible pattern, then that's good modular design. You can overdo it. You can definitely over-engineer it to a point where it doesn't make sense and it kind of feels like spaghetti code. You don't know how to get from point A to point B unless you had like some very long documentation in front of you. So that's what you want to avoid with modular design. Basically, separation of concerns is what you're going to want to familiarize yourself with. And the concept, I do think we touch on this concept a lot, but not directly because we don't take the time to really stop and talk about it. But just by design, or just by the nature of the lessons and how we've been writing them, we generally hit upon this. I think we've generally been following best practices with everything that we've done so far. And I can see it too when y'all demo your code. So read things like this to brush up on that a little more. Oh, I'm slowing down. This link is okay. There we go. And let's see, UI versus UX. Building a better terminal experience. Okay, so here we are going to demo using a library like Rich to make an improved well, UI. If this is just a terminal app, then your UI is going to be your terminal. I think up till now you've mostly had what? Just print statements and a simple interactive UI. What Rich does is it allows us to have somewhat of an interface. So if we do our Rich demo.py, sorry, this isn't shell, we can see that we have a pretty being subjective UI. It organizes some of our text into containers, and like this says, it will automatically word wrap the panel to fit the width of the terminal. So let's rerun that, and now we have different sizing. This is pretty straightforward. First, you're going to want to pip install Rich and maybe run pip install freeze to add that to your requirements. Oh, let me open that file up actually. So here we're just instantiating a console imported from Rich, and that's pretty much it. You're able to run console commands just using dot notation, and you just use this built-in or these other built-in libraries like text and panel to style your outputs. So that's Rich. That's one way to optimize. There's also let's see, did I do this one? I didn't do this one. Looks like it's text cleaning, if that's something that you are running into. I didn't try it because it didn't seem like the example had a lot of it, but this will be a part of today's lab, so you could run through that when you get a chance. Um, then there's hierarchical parsing. This shows us basically one single block of text, but you could write some custom code that allows you to automatically take that text and parse it into separate objects. So if we run this demo, again, we see this single block of text, we run it, and they are split into two separate documents. Let's see. And this, I think, is just stringing together some of these um, different techniques into a single technique. It talks about a pipeline, and I guess you could argue that this is a pipeline, but in more DevOps lingo, a lot of this is just really code strung together locally, right? If you wanted a proper pipeline in the DevOps sense of the word, we would be integrating this into an automation tool like GitHub Actions, and we would be separating things out into steps such that you have clear separation of concerns. I did set up a GitHub Actions for this, but I didn't separate everything out into steps. Maybe that's something that I could try and demo this afternoon. But we're also releasing assessment 3 today, so that's probably going to be the focus for this afternoon. And then testing, automated testing, which is always pretty important. I don't know how much testing y'all have been integrating, but one of the reasons it gets more important is if you are working with agents to help build your code, then testing can save you a lot of time, can save you a lot of headache because you can reuse those tests over and over as you create, iterate, and make improvements with the assistance of AI. And it should help catch some of the hallucinations or the incomplete iterative steps that it tends to give you sometimes. We do have an automation for today's app, and I do think there's a very light test suite for it. Let's see, where did I put this? Um, did I deploy? I did deploy this actually. Let me pull up. Okay, cool. My folder names are really bad. All right, so assessment 3, GitHub Actions deploy. This is building upon assessment 2. So when I run this, it'll look very similar, very familiar. But with assessment 2, we were focused solely on using Terraform to automate the provisioning of resources. And some of that is still in here as well. But now, just through Terraform, right? So we have our workflow. We establish our environment variables. We create the conditions for our dispatch. In this case, we have both a dispatch that happens when you push to main or production branches, or when you manually dispatch it yourself. So if we go to GitHub Actions and we see our failures, am I in the right repo? Oh, yeah, right. I don't think I've gotten this to a deploy yet. I'm going to try to fix this by this afternoon. And we go to our workflow, then we can manually dispatch the workflow using this part of the UI. And we can use the UI to also review why things may have failed. Okay, SSH key, that was what was happening, right? It's coming back to me now. Looks like, well, that looks wrong to me as well. I don't think no, the EC2 IP is there. Okay, so I'll have to just troubleshoot that. It might just be, it's got something to do with the key. So I'll troubleshoot that later. And basically, we keep circling back to deployment because your app isn't going to serve anyone much good if it exists only on your local machine, right? So building, well, first off, deploying it to a live location, a public location, or even an internal location. Let's say you were building an internal tool for an organization that will require some kind of release. And it would probably require continuous updates or maintenance, or maybe you want others to have access to it as well. That's where, again, building that pipeline becomes really important. So we can use GitHub Actions to make that pipeline. And one of the nice things about it, again, is it's just baked right into GitHub. So after we establish our environment variables and our trigger conditions, we do some setup steps like checkout, which again gives the GitHub runner access to the code. And then we set up Python, we set up any necessary dependencies, Boto3 for interacting with AWS via Python. We can validate the configuration by running checks, and this essentially acts as our test suite. If we go to that script, we'll see that it's just Python running a bunch of methods. And what I'm looking for, this might not be the latest version. I'm looking at this and it looks like it might not be the latest version. So let me go here real quick. There it is. Boy checks. Okay, there we go. We can use unit testing to make a more proper test suite. And really, it's more proper because with libraries like unit testing, you get access to a lot of, well, pre-programmed code, right? Pre-written code through the libraries, different methods, classes, etc. Here we are using test case to essentially establish our tests. And if you compare the syntax, shoot, which, there we go. It is a little more formal, right? Because all we have here are just a bunch of methods. And I think, do these methods get, right. These methods are just run in sequence in this last, in our main. And we have a cleaner syntax using unit testing. This will run every time you deploy the application. It will give you a report in GitHub Actions. Let's see. I actually want to add that now and do a push. It's going to fail because I haven't fixed the SSH issue. But also, why do we have this Python version? Oh, that was from PyEnv. Let me remove that. Okay. Okay, this isn't even the right repo. Whoops. Here we go. Okay, updates and origin main. We'll see that kick off some tests. And then if we go back to the rest of this flow, once we run our tests, we then set up for deployment. And that's going to be a separate script, deploy setup.py. And that is, am I in the wrong folder again? What is this? Deploy setup.py is, oh, I'm blind. There it is. It's right there. Let's see. Okay, so this just has a bunch of methods that are GitHub Actions um, well, the GitHub Actions actually calls the entire script in one go. I think it might call it again at the end, if I remember correctly. And in our main, we're just calling these in a sequence. We're grabbing values from our environment. We are then running some logic. This could probably be cleaned up a lot. It's mostly for handling different naming conventions when pushing up things like your SSH key, and then running some logic to confirm things like the Terraform backend. Is it set up? Um, can we SSH onto it, etc. So once that happens, then let me close this. How do I close this? Run our Terraform init. We run our Terraform apply. Because we are working in a GitHub Actions runner environment, which is ephemeral, we can't just have state existing locally. So we have a few options. We can always push and commit at the end of the workflow to save state so that we can actually just have it in the repository. Or we can do some scripting magic and import Terraform resources into state using AWS commands. And that's really what this Terraform import script is. Just a bunch of functions made to import resources into state. From there, we're testing the SSH connection, and then we deploy the application. I had a version of this that was using Ansible, but because we removed Ansible from the curriculum, this is a simplified version that really just SSHs onto the EC2 once it's up. It uses well, it depends on what you're using to push your containers. I like to use GitHub Container Registry over Docker Hub. So I have my GitHub token here for that. And we run the SSH command on the outputs grabbed from Terraform, and that includes the EC2 IP. From there, we have this inline script to essentially run these commands once we're SSH'd onto the EC2. We then run a health check before running our Docker Compose, and then our app is live. If I can, where is it? Where is it? Oh, right, never deployed. We never fixed the SSH issue. So we do have the app running locally though, because now that it's containerized, whoops, where was it? Okay, oh, it's just localhost. Right, so this is the same app that we built in Module 2, taking what we learned in Module 1 and Module 2, building out different components for each. But now with the addition of another page, and that's just integrating what you all have been working on this week. So we have the terminal interface, we have integration with endpoints for the RAG chain methods that were built, and it's hard to see, but like some buttons for hitting API endpoints for ingest and clearing database. Right now, if I try to send a message, it should give me an error. So it's telling me that our Titan embedding does not support what we have built the Chroma database with. So let me try clearing the database, see if that works. I have not tried this yet. Okay, no, it does not work. And I'll have to troubleshoot this from here. But really, the point is we can apply everything that we've learned already to containerize and get our application ready for production. And we're really just repeating a lot of patterns we've already learned, right? So that includes within our backend, adding additional endpoints for any additional logic that we create. So things like translate text, text to speech, that was from the last module. And then we have some new endpoints like knit rag chain. A lot of this is all, or I should say all of it. All of it is just taken from the existing project and just rewritten to fit into an already existing app. So there's just some refactoring involved, and the end result is you're able to deploy the entire thing. So we have this. Oh, sorry, I'm just seeing these questions now. Troy, he said, mentioned GitHub Container Registry or Docker Hub. Well, there's one reason of it being baked in. And really, maybe the other reason is when I am writing a GitHub Actions workflow, it's just maybe less variables or secrets to add to the environment. And honestly, if I think about it, it's really just one less variable or secret. Because with Docker Hub, you're going to have to provide your username and password. And with GitHub Actions, or sorry, GitHub Container Registry, you'll have to provide a token. But that's just preference for me, right? Like it's just, I don't know, one less variable and it's baked into, oh, I'm getting messed up with this interface. GitHub Actions, or sorry, GitHub. So you can access your containers straight from the UI. So I go to projects, or not projects, what is it called? Packages, I think is what it's called. Whoops, that's not what I want. That is going to be over here somewhere. The UI just throws me off sometimes. Packages, they're all contained in your, or accessible from your GitHub. And so I don't have to go to an external location like Docker Hub to access my packages. And I could click on these to get some information or stats on the package. And what else? Troy, can you your first two questions, you want to talk more about those?
Sure, yeah. So we've we've kind of simulated through the course our local dev environment and then pushing to AWS.
Mhm.
So it's kind of simulating dev and prod. Um, I I don't know that we've covered staging much. Um, so if you could touch on, does staging live in, like, if your prod environment is AWS, does staging live in AWS and it's just a different set of resources? Or does it live, is it more ephemeral and live inside Git, actions on the Git runner? Um, or, like, where's the best place for staging, and what do you accomplish with it? And of course, that's probably related to monolithic versus modular and end-to-end testing, for like integration testing. But that's the general. Can you sort of frame the environments that make a like enterprise level DevOps best practice?
Sure. For staging, I would say best practice is to get it as close as possible to production. So that means having it live, having it persist rather than having it ephemeral. So you could have the ability to go into, like, let's say, a UI and interact with it the way that you would in production. If what you're deploying is not ephemeral, like maybe we're talking about like a bunch of lambdas, like a repo just full of lambdas, then that would be one case where you wouldn't, or you would want to have ephemeral staging deployment. But for the most part, you're going to want to follow whatever patterns you expect to use for production. So if it's going to be live, you want it to be live. You want the pipeline for it to be as similar as possible to the production pipeline as well, so that really what you're changing is just the staging, or sorry, the environment variable for what the environment is, or right. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's really.
So, Julius, for example, in dev, you're not typically going to implement HTTPS, right?
Right.
So to make sure that making the leap from non-HTTPS to HTTPS, you'd want a staging environment to verify that it's working correctly first. Then, once you have a perfect working replica, you go ahead and deploy to production.
Exactly.
So, okay.
Exactly. Yeah. So dev is really whatever works best for you, whatever helps you build and add new features. And staging is for preparing to get it to production, because to Nick's point, there might be a lot of things that you can't test in development. Now there are we have this tool at Innova built by the developer experience team, the DevX team, and it basically uses Kubernetes to spin up pods as development environments. And even in this case, even though it's being spun up and deployed to our Kubernetes, it still is used as a staging environment because the pipeline is still different. It's not exactly the same, even though the DevX team has built it to try and get it to be as close as possible to production. We don't use it too much ourselves, the team that Kim and I are on, but we have pushed one of our application configurations to it. So we could use it to spin up a sandbox, basically a dev sandbox version of our app. So basically my point is there's no like universal law. There's really just best practices to follow, right? And you'd always deviate from those best practices. And if you do so in a way that, is beneficial to your use case, then it's innovation, right? As opposed to not following best practices and doing bad practices. It's not necessarily bad, basically, to deviate from the pattern, if you have a use case for it.
Okay, thanks for taking time to answer those.
Sure. Okay, let's see. We were on the workflow and okay, where were we? This is the script for the setup. And am I in the wrong? Oh, I must have. No, I'm lost. I don't know where my last browser tab was. Okay, but we were in the workflow. So let me just click on that somewhere. And no, I think I went through the entire workflow, didn't I? Oh, right. Yeah, we have the deploy scripts and then a health check for the container. Oh, maybe that's what I was doing. I was then running through this. This failed. And what does that look like? That's just Docker Compose with some Docker files. So again, things that should be familiar. I'm not sure I actually missed anything then. I think that's pretty much everything I've got. Maybe let's run through this real quick. This is just a script that combines a lot of what was in the lab, just now chunked out into a single script as opposed to several. And all of this is plugged straight into the back end that we had created for assessment 2 for that, I guess we call it AWS tool for the AWS front-end tool that combines things like Poly and Recognize and all that stuff. So that's another way to optimize, basically to get your work ready for release. Okay. I'm going to continue to troubleshoot this and I'm going to try to get this up by afternoon and we'll talk about pipelines a bit more and then we'll talk about assessment 3 as well. So that's going to be released this afternoon. We'll open up breakout rooms now. There are 4 or 5 steps in the lab/challenge. And I'll be here in the main room if anyone has questions.